let's start with the bottom because we'll get to it. I'll mention it.
Uh, yeah. So let's start at the bottom. Let's start with your bottom 10. We'll do your 10 and then my 10 and then your
Yeah,
9,
yeah,
my
we'll go
9.
back and forth.
Yeah.
My number 10, folks at home, is a little animated film called Trolls World Tour. I I made you watch this with me. You can actually, if you go on my YouTube channel, you can see a video I made of us of me making him watch it.
Yep.
The reason why it's in my top 10 like worst films is because I love Trolls. That first Trolls movie, I have fought to tooth and nail that I love it and I think it's a great movie. This movie sucked, and it had fucking Rachel Bloom.
This one you made me pay for. No,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
paid me for to see.
Yeah, I paid you to see, and then afterwards you felt so bad because I was so like broken with how bad it was that we ended up. I forget what I think you let me. I think you bought Forbidden Planet or something.
Um,
Um, there's some. Oh, it was Wizards. It was Wizards.
yeah,
You, you,
it's a.
you,
I mean, you bought Wizards through me.
yeah, basically.
The
Anyway,
issue of having all my friends have my Voodoo account is that they'll occasionally buy movies and they'd be like, "Hey, I bought this. You own it now." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Jennifer's Body, thanks."
that was also me.
I haven't
All
seen
right.
it, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, I think you're like. Go ahead. Go ahead. What's your
All
number?
right. So also Trolls World Tour, not in my bottom 10.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you were as
I wasn't
disappointed as I
as
was.
yeah, I wasn't anticipating it like you were. I definitely hated it. I thought it was a bad movie, but I thought that like there were parts of it that were fun. I also very much enjoyed watching your excitement crumble apart.
Yeah, because I went in
You went in
really.
like, oh,
Watch.
Josh
You
is
know
gonna
what?
be
Watch the
miserable, and I'm
video.
like,
Watch.
oh,
Watch the video on my YouTube channel because you could see me like go into it like so like pumped, and then we come back after the film, and I'm like, I don't know. Let's just. Do we even want to put this video out? Like,
yeah. Patrick's socials are all below his image there. We got Not Pat Riley at YouTube, Twitter,
yeah. If
and
you just
Instagram.
not Pat Riley everywhere, you can find my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I
Um,
wanna stress though he is Pat Riley.
no, I'm not Pat Riley, the basketball coach. I grew up in New York, so
I don't,
everyone, especially I grew up in New York in the '90s, so everyone's just like, "Oh, Pat Riley, you like the fucking Knicks?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't like
you
basketball."
tweeted about the Knicks the other day.
Well, no, I tweet about the Nets. I'm a Nets fan.
Oh, the Nets. I don't.
Yeah, it's fine. We don't talk about basketball. We're here talking about movies.
Number 10. And again, these are. I should stress that this is going from, in your case, 141 to 150, and in my
Yes.
case, 121 to 130. So,
Yes.
Trolls World Tour is not your worst movie of the year. We're
No.
building up to the worst movie of the year.
Yes. Okay.
My 10th worst movie of the year is A Good Woman is Hard to Find.
Now, is that the one with Miss Maisel?
No.
Oh,
That is. Oh, I know what you're thinking of because I saw that on someone's top list
I think it's
recently.
Honest Woman.
Yeah, I think An Honest Woman or something like that.
Yeah.
A Good Woman is hard to find. It feels very much like a superhero origin story, like a vigilante origin story,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't get there fast enough for it to be interesting. So it's this story about this woman who's a drug addict robber robs some gang members and then breaks into her house. He's like, "You gotta keep me safe here, or I'm gonna kill your kids and kill you."
Uh-huh.
And then she ends up getting like looped into all this stuff that she's not prepared for because she's just a single mom of two kids, and one of
Isn't
them
that the plot of Labor Day with
it
Josh
is.
Brolin?
Yeah, by John Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That is a
It
John
is.
Cameron movie.
Hello, Don't Be Sully. Speaking of Sully, I like the movie Sully.
It's not. I like Flight better.
I don't like Flight, but A Good Woman is hard to find. Yeah, it gets to the interesting part, which is like a climactic scene at the end with her and the gang. So late to the party where I was like, I'm not interested or invested anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
that sucks.
yeah. Oh well.
My number 9.
Mm-hmm.
It's another animated film. This one fucking hurt. I wanted to like this so bad. SpongeBob SquarePants Sponge on the Run is so poorly paid. Everything. First off, if you know anything about SpongeBob, like the guy who created SpongeBob, he had like big rules which were like, don't change the style, and there's no real need for like a spin. He didn't like spin-offs or anything.
Yeah.
And this is a the style is different. It's done by the same people who did the Peanuts movie a few years ago, which I do like a lot. But then just like pacing of the film, it feels like a bunch of ideas that were somehow looped together. none of it really makes sense as a cohesive story. And also, the whole plot is basically Gary goes missing, or he's kidnapped by Matt Berry, voicing Poseidon instead of Jeffrey Tambor. But
Well,
like they did that on
we know
SpongeBob.
why.
We know why. He's also Jeffrey Tambor was also replaced in Trolls World Tour because he plays the king in that.
Hmm.
He plays king in both these movies, and he was replaced for some reason. Something about hating women. Anyway, yeah, SpongeBob was. So this one also technically doesn't come out in the U.S. until next year, but I've already seen it, and I it's on my list this year.
Yeah, understandably.
What's
Uh,
your number 9?
my number 9 worst movie of the year. Also, real quick, Don't Be Sully has asked, "How are you both?"
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for asking.
yeah, I'm doing well. I mean, we're going over the bad movies of the year, but we're not having to sit through them again, so it's nice.
Yeah.
We're able to just rant about them.
Yeah, and honestly, once we get to my top 100, I will say my top 100 are all films I loved.
Um, I
No,
would.
for me, because I saw one,
Yes, I
I saw
know.
150, so there's nothing bad in my top 100.
I just noticed that when I posted my top 100 and like organized them, I noticed what was the first one I'm going to talk about, and I feel like I'm going to be uh, just like dragged through the streets and murdered for this.
Yeah, you will. I'm gonna fight you on that.
Yeah. Okay.
But go on. What's your number 9 is also my number 8.
Yes, my number 9 worst movie of the year is Mulan.
Yeah, that's my
Mulan.
number 8, and I hated it.
I went in with like some anticipation for it because I thought, okay, they're making enough changes that I feel like they actually have an idea of where to go. I was wrong. Egg on my face. They had no clue what they were doing. It was incredibly boring. There was so many parts of it that I'm trying not to spoil things, but there were so many parts of it that I thought if you had just done this slightly differently, if you had just like held off on certain things, like a certain thing that they keep showing throughout the movie that has a big moment at the end, don't show it until the end, or maybe show it once in the beginning to like set it up and then show it at the end. Uh, but it's shown so much throughout the whole time. You're just like, all right, when is this gonna happen? When is this
Yeah.
gonna activate? It's very
Also,
frustrating.
the guy who I really didn't like it. I didn't like the changes they made. The Mulan is maybe my top 3 favorite Disney animated movies.
Hmm.
I've rewatched it a few times as an adult. It holds up. I think it's such a great movie. The music is so good, but also just like the pacing of the story is so good. And that's where this movie completely fails. Is the pacing is all over the place. And also Mulan doesn't make any sense. Like also they use the idea of like chi as
Hmm.
like a Jedi force.
Yeah,
So now she has superpowers.
it's very much like
Um yeah.
they fell just short of telekinesis as far as it being just the force.
Yeah, and then also the dude. Oh, he was. Oh, that's right. The guy who plays the bad guy in this was also Mowgli in the live-action Jungle Book movie that from the '90s. Do you ever
Yeah,
see
the
that one?
older one. I did not see that one. I
Yeah, yeah,
saw the
yeah.
newer one by John Favreau, which I really liked.
I like that. You know what? I like both of them, but I haven't seen
Yeah,
the one from the '90s since I was a kid. So might be
yeah.
bad. What's your number 8?
My number 8 is She Dies Tomorrow.
See, I'm seeing this on things that people like though. Why do
So
you
am
not
I.
like
So am I. I don't.
it?
It's there are so many times where like I'll see a movie and I'll be like, oh, I don't like this, because I saw it on like one list by someone I respect, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out. I watch it. I don't like it. Okay, that's just one person I disagree with, and then all the other people I agree with start posting about how much they love it, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh no, am I wrong? Am I the idiot? Did I not get it? But no, I get it. It's just not interesting. Have you
Yeah,
seen the Neon Demon?
yeah, I don't remember it.
Um, yeah, well, so it's one of those movies that is all flash and no real substance, and I feel like this movie has the same issue, where there's a bunch of great trippy LSD visual effects,
Mhm.
but there's no plot. And as someone who is so into plot or well written characters, that's what I need, and to like enjoy a film. And She Dies Tomorrow, it has so many shots of just like, oh, I'm gonna die. No, you're not. Yeah, I am. I'm gonna die tomorrow. Oh, well, I might die tomorrow too. And it's like oh no, I was gonna say it's an interesting premise, but it's really not. It feels like the rough draft of an interesting premise.
Wonderful.
All right, my number
Sora,
7.
thank you for the subscription. I believe that is a friend of the show.
Nora.
Sora DX.
Oh, it's my brother.
Yeah,
He,
very very well appreciated. Thank you very much.
um, my number 7
Yes.
is Scoob. I went into Scoob so excited, so excited. I had such high hopes because I liked the voice
You
cast.
really did.
I liked the voice cast. I liked that they were making it like a Hanna Barbera universe. I liked that Snidely Whiplash was the bad guy. And not a thing worked for me. Everything. You know what worked for me? Will Forte as Shaggy was pretty good. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
Jason Isaacs as Snidely Whiplash was pretty good. Um, and and Zac Efron as Fred was good. Every other voice actor in that was awful. Uh, the story made no real sense.
You didn't
Um,
like Captain Caveman's voice actor?
oh my god, I got so we watched that together too, didn't we?
Yeah.
I got so mad because Tracy Morgan was just doing Tracy Morgan, and he's just like, "I'm Captain Caveman from the Bronx," and I'm like, "No, no, you're not." And then when he says Captain Caveman, it's just so bad. And then I it Hanna Barbera has such a rich history of just like having the characters meet and interact with each other,
Yeah.
and all you had to do was just copy and paste, and they didn't do any of that, and it makes no like nothing works in the universe.
hmm
And then Simon Cowell's in a lot of it, and
Simon Cowell's in so much. And I even mentioned to you, I was like, why does this feel like a joke from Shrek? And it's because it was a joke in Shrek.
Mhm.
I think it was Shrek 2. They had a thing where he was
Shrek
like reviewing their singing.
Yeah, they did the American Idol joke. American Idol's done, man.
Yeah. And
Yes,
he's still like big in X Factor, I guess, but he's not culturally relevant anymore.
yeah,
It'd be more culturally relevant to have Howie Mandel, and he's not culturally relevant anymore, but it'd be closer.
yeah, exactly. So that's my number 7, Scoob, and I'm still mad about it. I've been wanting to do a video about what they did to Muttley because they ruined Muttley for me, but I've got
Yeah.
too much on my plate. Go ahead. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is The Beach House.
Now, is this
This
the
is
one?
not the one directed by Dave Franco,
Okay.
which is my Letterbox review in its entirety. This is not the movie directed by Dave Franco. Um, I have not seen that movie. That is The Rental, where he rents a beach house, or not he, but people he's paid to be in his movie. Um, this is a movie about a girl who is staying with her boyfriend in a beach house, and I remember so little of it. But it's one of those movies that's just like, oh, you think aliens are scary? We don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean.
Wow.
And so, like, the whole thing is that, like,
You mean
creatures.
underwater?
No, because it's not even like it doesn't have the showcase of underwater. It doesn't have the star power or like the big things. It's literally just like a creepy movie about like these weird amoebas have washed up on shore, and if you step in them, then they infect you and like they grow roots into your feet and then up into your body, and then they possess you. And I'm like, this is not all that interesting to me. It's a decent premise, I think, but it's not well acted.
Mhm.
It's so low budget. I don't remember why I watched it. It was on someone's list that I respected. Past tense. What's your number 6? Your next
My number
one.
6 is Bloodshot.
Bloodshot. Tell us about Bloodshot.
Um, I don't remember much of it, but it's it's unbelievably forgettable. But it's weird because it's not a superhero movie, but it's a superhero movie. The premise is really interesting, and the Bloodshot's an interesting character,
Yeah.
but it just nothing really worked in it for me. Because nothing was really like I feel like the reason why superhero movies when they work is because there's like a universe around them that makes sense in like why that character exists in that universe.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like Bloodshot just kind of happens. And like you could take Bloodshot the character and put him in a Fast and the Furious, and you would not tell the difference. Especially after like Hobbs and Shaw, if you took Bloodshot and put him in Hobbs and Shaw, it'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
But
especially
like,
considering it's Vin Diesel.
yeah, but I mean, like even the I know it's like with Vin Diesel, but I mean just like the concept of Bloodshot
Yeah.
makes sense in like a Fast and Furious because there's no universe building, and that's the thing about Valiant Comics is there's so much universe.
Yeah. I love the Valiant comics. I got into them back when we both worked at a comic book shop that had Valiant comics, and I would get them because I was like, oh, I've heard pretty good things about these. I'll get Harbinger. I avoided Bloodshot for so long and Eternal Warrior because I was like, these two seem like macho douchebag ones that I won't like. Bloodshot was a lot headier than I thought it would be. The comic, not the movie. And then Eternal Warrior is like my favorite for the same reason. And then movie-wise, they were just like, oh, let's make an action movie. We need to hook people on this character rather than like get them interested in the idea behind the character. So who do you cast? Vin Diesel.
Yeah. What's your number 6?
Also, hello, Zachary blah blah blah, who just appeared in the chat.
Blah blah blah.
Zachary blah blah blah. My number 6 is The Half of It.
Tell us about it. I have to. Bananas is going to throw a
Yeah, that's fine. You take care of Bananas or pick her up if you want to. The Half of It is a queer romance movie. I think it's pretty damn boring because it's a queer romance movie that is breadcrumbs. It is not a filling movie. It is not the kind of movie that it was built up to be. Which is not entirely the movie's fault that it was so hyped up by the time I saw it that it was
that's
bad.
the thing too. Is going into this, I was really excited. Plus, I really love Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yeah.
This was a modern telling of Cyrano de Bergerac, but honestly, barely.
Barely. It had so many like 3rd or 11th hour reveals where it's like, oh, this character's homophobic out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's just there's like yeah, and also like the ending. I don't want to give it away, but the ending, I remember being like, "Oh no, that's a bad example. Don't young queer kids should not do what this character's doing, and this character's like the hero of the story."
Yeah,
and don't emulate what they're doing.
No,
you know.
There's a movie that I'm pretty sure made it into my top 100. It did, yeah. I'll talk about later as a good example of a queer rom-com that is like fun and inoffensive versus this one is inoffensive but it's not fun. It tries so hard to be like other teen rom-coms that it loses the element of queerness that made it interesting.
All right, my number 5 is You Be Halloween.
Another movie you made me watch.
Another movie but this one I knew was going to be bad, but then the reason why it's in my top 10 like worst movies is just he doesn't try anymore, you know?
No.
And I remember while we were watching this, I was talking about like some Adam Sandler sketches, and I feel like when Adam Sandler hosted SNL, we watched it together, and I was so excited to watch the Adam Sandler thing. And then I kept telling you about old Adam Sandler sketches on SNL I love, and I remember we watched some clips of Opera Man, and all those jokes were so dated.
Because I didn't remember Adam Sandler. I didn't watch SNL when I was a kid, so I didn't know Opera Man and all those other ones. But yeah, I saw Opera Man when he did like the remake of it when he was on the newer episode, and then I was like, oh, I didn't really like anything. You're like, you didn't like Opera Man? I love Opera Man, and you pulled up a clip, and it's just making jokes about Monica Lewinsky giving a blowjob, and I'm like, these did not age well.
In his defense, that was what
she did. She did do it.
In his defense. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like everyone was making fun of Monica Lewinsky, but it was like, and then it was something after that, and then something right after that where it was just like another.
There's like a don't ask, don't tell joke, I think.
Yeah. And I was just sitting there, just like mortified, like, oh my god. And the same thing happened when after we watched that, I was talking about Canteen Boy.
Yep.
Which is another Adam Sandler joke where the whole joke is he's being molested, and I was like going into it, I'm like, this sketch is so funny. I love this sketch. I used to love this sketch so much. And then we watched it. And then as we were watching it, I'm just like, oh my God, the whole first off, it goes on for 8 minutes, and it's an 8-minute
long sketch.
And the whole joke is he's getting molested, and you're watching him get molested. And that's the thing. That's the laugh line. And I was just like, I can't fucking believe that this is like a goddamn cornerstone of my childhood. But anyway, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Cats and Dogs 3 Paws Unite. So, unlike Trolls World Tour and Hubie Halloween, this is a movie that I brought to the table and said, hey, let's watch this.
And it's fantastic, to be honest. It's a good, bad movie.
It's a bad movie. It's my number 5 worst movie of the year. It's got parts in it that I was like, that's genuinely interesting, but there's so many parts to it that are so bonkers to the point of like, not
Yeah.
bonkers like this is crazy and fun, like the Robert Rodriguez. Is that the guy I'm thinking of? Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, yeah. Who did we did
Yeah,
the
We Can
for
Be
Hero?
Heroes. We Can
Yeah.
Be Heroes is bad, but it's fun, and it like knows that it's bad. This movie, I don't
Yeah.
think was aware that it was bad. It was just bad.
Mhm.
But you know what? It's Cats and Dogs 3. What did I expect? It literally started, and during the opening credits, I said, 5 minutes in, we're gonna get a fart joke, and sure enough, it was like a
Not
minute in.
not even. It was like immediately there was farts.
Yeah, immediately they were like, "Oh, the Federation Alliance, whatever, whatever, whatever," or fart, and I'm like, "Wow!" Right
Yeah.
off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Cats and Dogs 3 Pause Unite.
My number 4 breaks my heart, but it's Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Hmm.
This also came out in I think 2019 technically, but it was one of those things where, and there's a few movies out here you'll be like, well, didn't that come out in 2019? But it wasn't wide release or available until 2020.
Yeah, all of
And
these, there are going to be some movies that say 2019, some that say 2020, some that say 2021 in my case,
yeah,
but it's all based on when we were able to see it.
and also like if you look at it, like sometimes it says 2019 because it went played at a festival, but we can't see it if it's at a festival.
Yeah.
But Jay and Silent Bob reboot, he like took it on tour, and that was the thing. But it's a bad movie, but it's upsettingly bad because it's just um you know what, it's there's no like, he doesn't even try anymore. Like it literally was just like a wink to the cat. And I loved the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back growing up, so I was excited to see this. But it's has he always been bad is my question, or am I just,
Kevin Smith.
yeah.
Um,
I love Dogma still. I've seen Dogma
I haven't
recently,
seen Dogma in so long, so
but
that's on me.
I have seen Mallrats recently, and it's not good.
No.
No, I saw Mallrats like a year ago, and I remember watching it the whole time, being like, "No, this was good. I remember this being good."
Yeah, I have not seen Mallrats ever. I don't think. I liked, and we've already made plans to do this. I liked Kevin Smith on Degrassi, which we're gonna watch.
Yeah, yeah.
We made plans to watch
Yeah, I've seen
Degrassi
him on
Goes
the Degrassi.
Hollywood.
I've seen him on the Degrassi like the first time, but I didn't realize he came. Oh, they went to Hollywood.
Yeah, well, they did. So they did
They did
episodes
one where
where they
he's,
came on and they did like a 3-part episode thing.
yeah.
But
I've seen
then they made a movie, which was Degrassi Goes to Hollywood, to be in his new movie, which was a Jason Mewes led something. Oh, the musical, I think. The Jason musical.
that. Okay.
It's very Degrassi. And apparently very Kevin Smith.
Anyway, it's your number 4.
My number 4 is The Room.
Oh, The Room. The Room.
The Room.
The Room is on fire.
Uh,
Yeah, you hate this.
at one point, I think it
You've
was.
talked about. Yeah, you've told. I have not seen this movie, but I know every ounce of it because you have been so mad at this movie.
Yeah, because it's such a movie I compare it to, and this, I want to stress, this is not The Room with Tommy Wiseau. This is another
Not a
movie that
perfect
decided, hey, let's also name ourselves The Room. There's no baggage related to that title.
Mhm.
This movie is about a couple who moved to upstate New York, I think, and they buy this house that is kind of weird and mysterious, and there's a room right in the middle of the house that's got wires like inside of the walls. And they're like, well, that's weird. Anyways, let's just live our life. And then they're sad, and one of them is drinking in that room, and he goes, ugh, I wish I had another bottle of booze. And then another bottle of booze appears. And I'm just like, oh. Oh. I love magic realism when it comes to, like, stupid bullshit magic items. I love the brass teapot, for example.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine for a lot of people. I love that movie because I like that it's not about the item. It's about this couple that have this item and how it affects their relationship. So they realize that this room somehow
on,
magically 3D prints whatever they want, really. And one thing they really want is a child because she cannot get pregnant. And that's the plot of every movie where a woman is dating a man Not really, obviously, but that happens too often. So she can't get pregnant, and she decides to make that wish. She 3D prints a baby, and of course, it's a fucking nightmare baby, and it's evil, and it's so insane and bizarre. Also, not the only movie I've seen where someone invents a baby magically, which there's another one on my top 100. But yeah, this one, they make the baby with the magic. Anything that leaves the house, it can stay in the house, but it can't leave the house. It can leave the room, but it can't leave the house. Anything
Yeah.
that leaves the house prematurely ages a ton. So, like, the example they use is like they put a painting from Van Gogh in the doorway of the house, and half of it completely deteriorates to ash. So there's this whole thing where they're like throwing the guy tries to put the baby outside to like just kill it really quickly.
Hmm.
And it's really weird and dark. And then honestly, I was on board for most of it besides the acting until towards the very end when it just has a very, and this is going to sound redundant, but a very unnecessary rape. That it didn't have to be a rape. It could have just been an assault, like a physical assault. They had to make it sexual because they wanted to be fucking subversive, but it was just so disorienting.
Yeah, yeah, you really hated it.
I did. It's my number 4 worst movie of the year.
My number 3 worst movie we already talked about is Cats and Dogs Three Paws Unite. This is why I didn't say anything before.
Yeah.
There's a moment in this movie where the villain of the movie is a parrot,
Yeah.
and they tied a child's parrot
A
puppet.
parrot voiced by who?
George Lopez.
George Lopez.
They put the like a child's puppet on a steering wheel, and the parrot is driving the car, and then the puppet is just wiggling back and forth, and it is
It's
but
beautiful.
then you think, oh, it's just from afar, it's not that big a deal. There's close-ups of a puppet, like a puppet you would buy at
They're like holding the steering wheel and the puppet's just attached.
like attached, and it's just flailing, and the wings are doing this because it's like it's awful.
It is.
Anyway, what's your number 3?
It's awful. I recommend everyone go watch it.
Please go watch it.
Unlike this movie, American Pie, Girls is Rules.
Now, why do you hate women? Don't think about it. I don't like that you're thinking.
So, this movie is bad, and it's not because women are the leads. I actually like that part. I liked a lot of characters, the female characters at least. It's just so boring and forgettable. And if you're an American Pie movie, you shouldn't be boring. There's also this plot line where it's like there's the one guy that every girl wants to fuck. Like all the girls decide, oh, we're gonna. There's this new guy in my science class, and I'm gonna fuck him. And another girl's like, oh, there's this new guy that's going to band camp, and I'm gonna fuck him. And they all realize eventually, like, it's the same guy. And they're like, oh, but the girls' rules say we can't have sex with someone that we're. Is this? Oh God, you're right. This is it's now a Mia Ponsetto hat.
Yeah, I noticed that. I put that on my.
I got this hat before that
You did,
woman
you
became
did.
a thing. I got it as a gift from my friends Dustin and Dylan.
Yeah, you should put some fake glasses on
Yeah.
and steal a phone from a black teenager.
So American Pie, Girls as Rules. They decide, oh well, we all have rules. We can't disrespect each other by sleeping with the same guy. That I mean, sleeping with the same guy is one thing, but it's like, oh, you like him, I can't sleep with him because you like him. But then, of course, they realize that the perfect guy for them is this nerd or this AV tech guy, which is also still a nerd. It's very fucking weird. There is a part I think you would like where a girl masturbates while playing a JFK speech in the background.
Yes.
And then the guy she ends up with is a guy who could do a good JFK impression, and she has him do it during sex.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's bad, but it's fun.
Before I do my next one, let me just double check.
Double check that this is your second worst favorite movie and not your
No,
worst.
this is 100% my second worst, but I just want to see
Okay.
Okay, so we're not going to talk about it in depth later. My number 2 is Adam.
Yeah.
I fucking hate this movie.
Yeah.
This is the movie. There's a lot
So,
of controversy.
Patrick,
about
why
it.
do you hate trans people?
No, that's the thing. I don't. This movie does, and I hate this movie. Is the perfect fucking white privilege film. This is about a fucking white kid who does a terrible thing, and then they have a fucking person of color at the end of the film pat him on the back and go, "It's not that big. Don't worry, buddy. I forgive you." So you are forgiven. I hate this movie. I hate it. I hate it so much. Margaret Qualley's in it, and I love Margaret Qualley. I fucking hate this movie. Um, there, it just it's and I mean, you've gone into the bit because you do not hate this movie. You like this movie. The reason why we watch it is because you told me you liked it, and you were so I was like, all right, I'll give it a chance. And now that I've seen it, yeah, no, I agree with people. I don't like.
I will clarify.
Hold on, I don't like that people are hating this film without seeing it because I don't think you should do that with anything. I think if you want to hate something, that's great, but I think you should at least see why you hate it. And now that I've seen this film, I can tell you why I hate it, and it's because this kid gets away with such terrible things, and it's just it's like I felt like I was going crazy when the movie ended, and it was just kind of like a this was a life lesson learned. I'm like, no, you really fucking did a terrible thing. Like anyway,
No, that's fair.
yeah,
So yes, I did like this movie for other reasons, not for the reasons that you disliked it. But I will say I didn't make you watch it, or I didn't have you watch it because I liked it. I had you watch it because I thought that the people that were saying don't watch this because X when they had not seen it were unfounded, and I wanted you to be able to see it yourself and make your own opinion. Because I
yeah.
liked it, but I wasn't sure that you would like it. I thought
But
maybe you would like it.
I will say after seeing it, I agree with most of the people's opinions. Like the
Okay.
people who I still disagree that you should watch something before you just blanketly hate it,
Yeah,
unless it's like fucking Mein Kampf the musical. I mean,
I'd be fascinated by what that is. Um, I am so. One thing I think is important is the trans people I've spoken to that have seen the movie have enjoyed it. Like people I don't know personally, but I saw people on Twitter talking about it. There was a person on Twitter. I don't remember their pronouns, so I'm gonna just say they them. But they were posting about the movie and saying that they enjoyed it, and I was like, "Hey, this is interesting." A friend and I, who have very similar experiences being bisexual men, uh, cis men, we have run into differing opinions about this movie. What is your personal opinion? And they said, I grew up in New York, and this is the exact experience I went through at that time, as far as like what the culture was like, which I thought was very interesting because that's not the culture you experienced, also growing up in New York in that time.
and also very queer.
Yeah. So
Like
that was very interesting to me, where
that's the
they had
thing.
a
It
different
wasn't like
experience as a trans person than you did as a bisexual, which also I think the movie is more
which
bisexual than
which
it
is
is
very
trans
different.
in some
Which is
ways.
very different. It's
Yes.
very different, but also, um, yeah, it's not really about a trans experience. It's more about like a bisexual
And not
being
the lead character either, but like his
not the lead
sister
character
has such a huge thing with
being bisexual, and
being
then
bisexual, but struggling to recognize that because there was so much biphobia, still is, but at that time especially, where she was attracted
like
to somebody who was trans, and then she was like, "Well, I'm a lesbian," but then she started dating a trans guy, and she was like, "Well, I'm still a lesbian because he's biologically female," and then now we can look back and be like, "Well, that's not correct," but that at the time was something that she was like, well,
yeah,
I'm not bisexual. I'm attracted to. I mean, he has a vagina,
yeah,
and now we're like, oh, well, that's transphobic. That's what you're describing as transphobia.
yeah. But also like the thing too is like a lot of people. I mean, not a lot of people. Like the people you talk about, like oh, that's my experience in New York. Like I had. I mean, like it wasn't like I didn't. I wasn't engulfed in queer culture. I mean, I was. I mean, like I spent a lot of time at the center at the time. There's a lot of like teen queer hangouts in the city that I would go to because I had friends who went there.
Yeah.
Um, I was very much part of like, especially like teen, especially because I was around the age of the main character,
Hmm.
going to that same sort of scenes. So it's like I did not experience. There's kink shaming in it too, which I hate. So listen. I have been red in the face talking about my hatred for this movie. You know this. I, yeah.
And now it's
I
my turn to get red in the face talking about a movie that I don't understand why people like.
Go ahead.
The
Well,
Social Dilemma.
I teed it up for you
Thank you.
because I've heard from so many people that they love it. You're the only person who I know actively hates this movie. There's a lot of people I've talked to who don't like it, but you're someone who like you've gone at it. You hate this.
Yeah, I have reached out to Dale Barron, author of "It Came from Something Awful," meme culture and the rise of Trump. It's not the correct subtitle, but that's what the book's about. I've reached out to him to preemptively warn him that, like, hey, this movie sucks. I just read your book. I liked it a lot more than this movie. But But yeah, so it's
That's how you sound right now. I don't like this movie.
I mean, I went into it kind of anticipating that I wouldn't love it, but I really hated it. Partly because they're doing this whole they can't decide if they want to be a nonfiction informative movie or a narrative. So they're like explaining how social media works. And
Kind of
then,
like American Animals, right?
no, because American Animals does it in an interesting way, editing wise.
Uh huh.
And same with the other movie that director made, The Imposter. But this one is a thing where they're like, here's how social media works. I developed this program for social media. Here's how it works. And they explain it to you. They tell you. And then they show you to reemphasize it. But they show you by showing you with this very stupid plot where the political villain that has gotten so popular thanks to social media and the algorithms is extreme centrism. Because they didn't want to just say Nazis are bad, because they didn't want to lose the Nazi audience of the movies. So instead of saying just the alt-right or extreme right-wing extremists who fucking stormed the Capitol now, instead of just saying those are the bad guys, or even if you wanted to take the other side and say fucking Antifa is the bad guys, whatever, they didn't want to take a side, so they said extreme centrism, and they made up these villains that are so clearly using the stylings of the alt-right, with their fucking talking heads and their signs that are anti-government and stuff, but they just made up their own fucking villain that is so stupid, and, in my opinion, reckless. Yeah, I hated the movie. There was one other topic I wanted to hit on it. One other point. It's poorly acted, for one thing, so the fictional narrative is not necessary. Oh, the other part, no one takes responsibility. They talk to so many like former CEOs, CFOs, programmers for social media who talk about how like, oh, I developed the program that makes it show you things that will get you hooked and like send you down the rabbit hole. But then by the end of the movie, they're just like, oh, my kids don't use social media. I don't let them. And I don't think you should use social media either. And I'm like, cool. Take some responsibility for what you've done. You're warning us about this, but you're not saying, like, my bad, I shouldn't have done this. And it really pisses me off. And I know a lot of people love it, but I feel like it's not teaching anyone anything we didn't know. We know that social media is bad for us. We know that social media is sending us down rabbit holes and not letting us see the things that we should see in impartial views. It's showing us targeted things because it knows it's going to keep us clicking and show us more ads. I get that. We all get that. We don't need a movie about it.
Yeah.
Anyways, the number one worst movie of the year
is Doolittle.
Doolittle.
Stay with me. No. Say it together. Look me in the eyes. Doolittle. Don't say it with me though when we look at you.
We're not gonna Doolittle.
Doolittle is
both of our number one.
Both of our number ones.
Number one worst movie.
I think not only was that this is our last movie, the worst movie of the year, but also at one point was our favorite movie of the year because it was the first thing we saw in 2020.
Yeah. It was either like late January or early February, but it was
I think it was like the third week in January.
Yeah.
We went and saw Doolittle and it was so bad. It's
how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
To go from one of our favorite movies of the year by default to one of our least favorite movies of the year.
I mean, it was always last for me. It's so bad. It's so bad in like every way. Technically, it's just a poorly made film. The CGI doesn't always work. The story doesn't really make a lot of sense. The worst part too is you can see that there was a fun idea there, and it's just squandered. The worst part of this movie, and people are gonna be like, "Oh well, fucking, you got the dragon gets a thing up its ass," or like the squirrel raps at one point. That's not the worst part of the movie. The fucking worst part of the movie is the fact that Robert Downey Jr. all his lines are ADR'd, but you can tell he didn't want to do the ADR for it. Like all his lines, like every word of dialogue is a completely different pitch and does not sync up with his mouth at all. Because I don't think he wanted to do it, but he must have done some accent or something, and the studio was like, "Oh, people can't understand you, so you got to do something different."
And the accent they went with in the end was awful. So how bad was it beforehand?
Yeah, you can't understand what he's saying half the time because he's mumbling, and it's a weird Scottish accent, but it's not. It's just kind of like, and then so it's like mouth is moving. You just hear, "This goes animals. You gotta see see them all the way through. And I'm like, the fuck is happening? Like, it makes no sense. God, it makes me so angry. That because I went in and I was like, oh, I've heard this is bad. This is gonna be like Cats, and I love Cats. I love Cats. Cats is a good bad movie in my opinion.
Yeah,
It is.
I would even say that Cats is a bad movie, but it's fun.
It's so much fun.
It's so stupid, but it's fun to watch and make fun of.
We're like this. It's like not even fun to make fun of because the whole time you're there, just like how much money? This Robert Downey Jr. He's fucking.
This is also like the first movie of his to come to theaters after Endgame.
Yeah,
so
like
it really felt like he's like, well, I've done Endgame. I can do whatever the fuck I want now.
Follow up to I Am Iron Man is just fuck you. Come on, get out of here with that shit. Anyway, that was our top 10 worst, and we was for 40 minutes. So now we have to do. That took us 40 minutes to get through 10 films. Now we got to do 100. This is from Intense in Brooklyn. It's a ginger liqueur, and I'm gonna make sort of kind of like a little gin and tonic.